Okay, so we have our battery taken apart here, and we're going to need to make some cuts on it. As the battery is wired, it's 2S2P, and we're going to change it to 4S1P. And so what we have to do is we have to make 4 cuts on these bus bars, and these cuts are going to require an actual bolt cutter. So something that actually has quite a bit of leverage on it, like that. If you use a regular type of wire cutter, for example like these Klein grips, you'll never get through this bus bar. It's actually quite thick, as you would imagine, to carry the current. So what we're going to do is we're going to have to actually cut in 4 different spots here to rewire this thing. We're going to end up cutting 4 things on here. We're cutting them out. It'll actually be 8 cuts, and I'll show you why. And it'll cut 4 paths electrically. So what we'll do is we're going to cut here and then here to cut this little tab out, and then we're going to come down here and cut here and here again to cut this tab out, and then we'll have another one here. You can see I've already cut this lead right here, just kind of to test it out. We'll need to cut the top off here, and I'll show you a little trick on that to keep these guys from falling into the battery and shorting it out. And then our last one, which is going to be the hardest, is going to be to cut. There's actually a bus bar that goes from here to there, and we have to cut both sides of that as well. And so the order we'll do it in here is going to be important, because we're going to basically electrically disconnect this battery as we cut leads so that we can short particular bus bars out without it sparking. If you short something metallic, this is not metallic, if you short something across any of these leads while you're cutting, for example, say you're cutting here and you accidentally touch this guy, it's going to be a pretty big spark. You're probably going to lose part of your tool. You might injure yourself. So not for the faint of heart. So how do these connect? Well, I'll show a picture, but we'll go through first here. We'll start at the positive lead and we'll work our way negatively. So the positive lead is going to hook up to the cells, and I've labeled them A, B, C, D, just for our reference here. So A is the topmost, D is the bottommost. And so the way this is wired electrically is that our negative, which is over here, is actually hooked up to these first 2 cells, again because we're in 2S2P, so we have 2 cells in parallel here. And then electrically we come over here. This is our intermediate positive rail, so that's this guy right here. You can actually see him going 1, 2, 3, 4. So this actually hooks up to 4 different tabs. We'll obviously need to change that. So from the positive, so we go negative to positive on these 2 cells in parallel, and then we hook up to the negative of this cell and the 2 positives here. So in volts, it's basically 0 volts, 4 volts, 4 volts, 8 volts approximately. And so what we're going to do is change it to be, instead of hopping up to 8 volts, it's going to hop up to 16 volts. And this will basically have the number of cells you need to do a lithium conversion. So mechanically, however, I already mentioned the way this guy steps here, and we're going to make 2 cuts here. We got to cut this guy and we got to cut that guy. And then we also need to cut this guy here, which is going to be fun, I guarantee. And then we can cut here. So starting here is easiest because there aren't any cells, leads that you can short to. If you look at this positive here, there aren't any other leads that are sticking out. You know, if you get your tool between here and all the way down there, of course it will short out. The goal is that you won't do that. So we'll start here, and when we cut this guy off here at the end of the day, then cell D is basically going to be floating, so that if we short something out on it. So we'll look at it. So because I've already started with the first cell cut of 4 here, what we need to do is we need to actually add a piece of tape to this, and that way when we cut the second little piece of this tab off, it doesn't go flying somewhere. So what we'll do is we'll just add some tape to it, you know, just stick it down like that. And then we're going to take our tool and get it to fit in here, and then we're just going to go like that. And it's copper, so it's very malleable. So even though we've cut through it, it didn't go pling or anything like that. So now what we're going to do, let's pull that tape back off like that. Well, that didn't work so well. What we'll do is we'll get some needle nose pliers. or snub nose, because that's what I have on the shelf. And we're going to basically just break this tab off. So now the tab's off. So it's fairly thick, probably 1.5 millimeters or 2. So we basically disconnected the first connection here. So the second one we'll do is over here, and I'll recommend that you put some kind of rubber or something there. Scotch tape is not recommended, but it's what I have sitting here. So that's what I'm going to use. So just some kind of protection in case you accidentally short it out. Again, this guy we just don't want to touch. Well, that didn't work so well. If I had duct tape, this would be perfect. Don't use duct tape either. Okay, so we just kind of tape that off in case we get in the way. So what we'll do is we'll make our second cut here, and just gonna hop in like that, and then okay. And then, just as I mentioned before, in this case, we want to make sure that we cut the second tab off here. We don't want the tab to fall down and short those two rails out because it would incinerate itself. So again, use electric tape or something else. I'm using Scotch tape like that. I'm just kind of taping it to where this bar can't fall when we cut it and fall down into there and basically short out between the two. And then I'm going to put a little piece of tape on it again, just like that. And that way, if it flies off, it's at least kind of captively held. So this will be our second piece we're cutting out. Alright, so that one cut pretty good. Well, so we will take our piece of tape off and just kind of grab around here. Okay, not quite off. There it is. Okay, so we've got number 2 out of 4 off. Those are the easy ones. So the next one is over here. And if we look at it here, we still are connected between these cells. But if you take a voltmeter, you'll see that we have 3.6 volts. You obviously can't see the meter, but you'll have to trust me. I'm measuring from here to here. We have 3.6 volts. So we still have one cell in series there. So if we short out to that bar, it's still going to spark. So we have to do it carefully. And what we should do is kind of just pry that up a little bit. You're not going to hurt this battery by bending the tab, and then take a pink pearl eraser or whatever and just kind of stick it where you can. So stick it between the tab stick it between the negative and the AB. So we're not, it's a little bit of force, but you're not going to hurt anything. This will let us actually do both of our cuts. So the first cut that we have to do is right here. And so we're going to take our cutters, hop down, and there's our first cut. And then our second cut, once we add a little piece of tape, if we can add a little piece of tape, I don't know if it's going to fit. This is the first time doing this, by the way, so hopefully it goes well. So we got a little plastic tab here that we need to get up out of the way. And how are we going to do that? So we're going to just kind of bend it like that. And then hop in there. Okay. So now we've cut 3 out of 4 out. Grab our little piece. Okay. So we got one left, and it's right here. So it's actually going to be a little bit easier than I thought it was going to be. And if you look at the cell, because we've cut this connector off and this connector off right here, cell D is no longer connected to this stack. and also cell A is only hooked up to A to B, but B is hooked up to B to C. So in short, you can short out to either here or here. None of these will measure a voltage. There's no impedance path. So for example, from here to here, we just measure noise, and from here to here we measure noise as well. There is no connection, so you could actually take and accidentally short. Although it might be harder to accidentally short out than I think. There's actually fairly good protection there, but whatever. So we're going to cut this last guy here off, and we'll just go like that. And we're going to grab the one last piece here. Again, I'm going to put a little piece of tape on here. Maybe it'll go through here. Let's see. Okay, so all I'm doing when I put these on here is I'm just trying to make sure that if this piece does fly off, it is stuck to tape. So we're going to cut again. And again, I'm having to push pretty hard on these bolt cutters, so you're not going to be able to do this without a nice little mini bolt cutter. Okay. So we've cut all 4 tabs now that we needed to cut. We're going to take this guy back out. And so the first thing you'll notice is that because we cut all these tabs, these guys are a lot looser now. There's a lot of mechanical rigidity you got having 2 cells that weren't coplanar. So now we only have this one connection here. Fortunately, when we snap the cap back on this guy, there's some mechanical reinforcement there. So Nissan was thinking properly when they did this. On this side, we do run into a not as good of a mechanical solution, but there is some constraint here that you can see these guys push down. So the cap that we throw back on, when we throw the cap back on it, it kind of holds it all together. So we still have the mechanical rigidity we wanted. So what we need to do, we'll take this guy back off. We need to make sure that none of the leads here can ever come into contact again. So that's why we cut these guys kind of as close as we could. This one's not as good as I would have liked. You can see how it still has a little bit of a curve on it. What we'll end up doing is we'll need to stick some kind of insulator between here so that if this does for some reason get crushed, you can see how close it is right now. There's no way that it will contact. So one thing you could do is you could take you could take this guy again and just cut another time to cut that little lip off. At this point, most of your cells are floating, so you don't even need to really worry about accidentally shorting it out. So what we'll do is we'll come in here and we cut that piece off again. So, okay, now that looks pretty good. We'll still want to put an insulator in here. There's not a lot of clearance there. That would really scare me, especially with this ability to be turned. So what we need to do to hook these things up is we need to hook up, I have a little cheat sheet here that shows how we're going to be hooking these guys up mechanically, and I'll put this online, of course. And so what we have to do, as I mentioned, was we need to hook up A to D, so A positive to D minus. So this is A positive and this is D minus here. So we basically need to put a piece of copper, and we need to use copper bar because you're not going to get a round wire in here safely. So we'll basically end up drilling 4 holes. We need one hole right here, so we'll have to drill that guy out. We need another hole right here, we need to drill that guy out. And then we'll just hook a bar, so we'll have a bus bar that comes in as well. So on the other connection that we need to do is we're going to be hooking C minus, which is here. We're going to be hooking that to B plus, which is that it's hidden right here. So B plus is that guy we cut off right there. So we'll need to drill a hole through this, and we'll need to drill a hole through that. Now if you look, we actually kind of luck out here because all of our drills are accessible. If we had to get in here, maybe it would be a lot harder. We can drill here, we can drill here, we can drill here. Probably from the other way, we probably drill here. And then of course we drill here for this tab. Now we need to put a wood block, for example. If we're drilling this tab, we'll put a wood block below it and then just drill through it so that it's based on something so it doesn't bend the tabs. If you torque these tabs too much, they will certainly tear. And also these tabs are They're basically electrically welded when they're assembled at the factory. If we drill through all the weld, of course it won't work. So we basically need to use a small drill hole with a large surface area copper contact, and that'll give us quite a bit of low resistance path, basically, as we have our high current coming through, because these two leads will be sourcing all of the current that go through the motor. We also need to cut this tab off, and the reason we need to do that is that we need some sense leads. So when we get the battery, the OEM battery from Nissan, we can just hook our sense leads 1, 2, 3 here, because it's 2S2P, and so with 2 cells you need 3 connections to measure those voltages. You need negative, you need the positive, and you need the intermediate stack voltage. Well, now that we have 4 cells, we actually need 5 connections. And these 5 connections that we need to measure are the negative, which is just here, we don't need anything else, the positive, which is here, which we don't need anything else. So really we need 3 cells that we need, or 3 points we need to measure the intermediate cell voltage inside of the pack. So we need to measure it. So again, we have a connection between A plus and D minus here, so we need to measure here somewhere along the way. So basically, the hole we drill right here, we'll put another remote sense lead on here, and that way we can measure the cell voltage. We also need one from the B plus to C minus. So B plus, no, that's a lie. C plus to A minus, sorry. So the C plus to A minus, we need to measure that intermediate voltage as well. So we'll have the bar here. So we've already drilled the holes for that as well. But now this third one we need to measure is the B plus to C minus that I just spaced out on a second ago. We don't need to drill a hole here to route the current, but we do need to drill a hole to hook our remote sense lead. So at the end of the day, we're going to drill 5 holes, and then we're going to hook bus bars between 4 of them. So bus bar from here to here with our remote sense lead, and a bus bar from here to the one hiding up here with a sense lead. And then we'll have just one more hole right here, still easy to drill. Fortunately, they're all easy to drill. And the reason they're easy to drill is that when Nissan assembles this pack, they have a big clamp that has to clamp down with an anode and a cathode that basically shorts into these things to put the massive amount of current you need in there to weld the copper to the tab of the battery. So obviously here as well, and then they attach these in such an order, like for example this pack, cell D. They attach these 2 guys before it's ever even unpacked. So they attach this guy here, and then of course this guy attaches here with that. And then when they put them all together, they do 1, 2, 3 to finish the packs all together. So it's a really smart design, and it lets us take advantage of it to add these post-drill holes. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut that last tab off. And so if you look, there's a mechanical strain relief part right there, and I like that, so I'm gonna try to preserve that. And if it doesn't work out, not the end of the world. So we'll just basically pull this tab down a little bit, come in, oops, right here, like that, I guess, something like that. It's kind of a weird bend that it has, so I don't like the way that did that, because you see how it kind of bent the tab a little bit. We don't want to bend the tabs, so you know, I'm iterating here on the fly, so it's amazing how rigid that is. So we'll need to probably cut through that nice hole I liked, but such as it is. I wonder if we can come here, and again, you can't short if you touch this right now, because it's still hooked up to the pack. It's still going to spark. So I think the safest spot to cut is unfortunately through that hole, but yeah, that's going to be the easiest way to do it. So we're going to just cut that guy off right through the hole. I think you run a real risk otherwise. So now, you know, it's actually still, it looks like the hole still kind of lines up. I just like the mechanical support we get there. So what we do now is we're going to have our 3 wires attached. You know, we'll throw them through here. And that way, there's a nice clean finish here. Okay, so this has become an arts and craft project. It's late. Eventually I'll maybe sell a kit for it. So I made the bus bars out of cardboard, which is funny, but it's late. So we have two bus bars, and you might be able to see them. The first one's right here, the second one's right here. And so if you look at the first one, it is again hooking up here to here, and there will be holes drilled in it that you screw together. And the second bus bar goes from underneath here, if you look, like that, and attaches to there. And so those are the two bus bars you need. You can make those out of 1/2-inch copper, 1/2-inch wide copper that's 2 millimeters thick. That's what the OEM is approximately. And so those are the two high current paths you need. And so next up I'll show you the sense leads, which I'm not really at my house, so it's going to be embarrassing what I'm going to come up with since I don't have loose wire right here. We'll see. Okay, true to form, I did find yarn. Again, I'm not in my place. I'm a little embarrassed, not my proudest moment here, but we have our 3 remote sense leads again. We needed 5. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to show you how this works. So probably yarn is a little bit too high resistance for remote sense, being that it's measured in giga-ohms per foot. So when we pull this guy off, you can see how our routing is done. I have the bus bars in here too. So our first bus bar is here. One thing you'll notice is that there is a ridge on the right side where I had proposed putting this bus bar. So you can still use the bus bar, but it needs to be thinner. Alternatively, you can break the tabs off. And but yeah, if you just recess the bus bar and then scoot it over a bit, so right now this is kind of a rough prototype, but if you were to make this a hard edge here, it would actually clear this. It would just run right along this side. Right now these two guys are just pushing on it. Oh, you can't see any of that, damn. Okay, well, everything I just said, here's ridges. So the way the wires are routed, and again, yarn and tape, we're going to take the bus bars out just for clarity here. So there's our 2 bus bars. So our first wire here is going to go from this guy. There'll be a hole through, obviously, so you'll put a spade lug on here, or a ring lug. Use a ring lug, and that's going to run underneath here. There is no bus bar here, so it's not like we're getting close. So all these sense wires don't run anywhere near where power would be. So there's our first lead here. Second lead does the same thing. So again, the negative is not here. It's completely electrically isolated by this bar, and they've even added a second protection here in this plastic. So there's number 2. Number 3 is very obvious to lead done right there. So yeah, there are 3 remote sense leads. Again, that's why we had to cut this tab off so that we could route them out. These don't need to be high gauge. This would be a very thick wire if the diameter were copper here. I mean, you could use 20-25 gauge wire. In fact, using a higher gauge wire is actually safer, because if you accidentally short the lead out, the wire is just going to incinerate. And it'll incinerate and blow out quickly, just like a fuse. This battery pack is going to be able to deliver hundreds and hundreds, thousands of amps if you short it out. So if you do accidentally short out a battery pack through 22 gauge wire or whatever, there won't be a fire. It will just be kind of a little mini explosion, but it will burn out quickly. Now, obviously, I don't condone that, shorting it out, but that is what it is. So remote sense leads, you do have to be careful with. If the gauge gets too low. So yeah, that is how you can convert these packs. Now logistically, with the Linsight project, you need to be running 36S. So it'd be 18 divided by 2. You need to do this modification, this whole video that I've spent way too long on here, 20 minutes. All of this stuff I'm doing here is first take. I'm not editing this. I don't plan on doing this in my car. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But for the person on the budget who wants to do a Linsight install for less than $2,000 total, the buying 9 of these packs is about $1,000. It's a little bit more. I think it's like $1,100. The Linsight PCB is going to be about $750, and the kit will be about $250. So you're looking at just over $2,000, maybe $2,100, plus your time. Drilling all these holes. You're drilling 5 holes per guy here, so you're going to end up doing 45 holes. Probably want a drill press. I wouldn't do it by hand, but you could get away with it if you had to. So yeah, that's it. That is how the mod does. Now the one benefit here, and the one thing that's enticing to me, is that the Linsight battery I had originally proposed, which was to use 18 of these Leaf modules, it was basically twice the weight of the OEM battery. Well, now that we've halved the weight, the new drop-in battery is the same weight as the OEM battery. So that's nice. And it's very nice, actually. You don't have to worry about the additional sprung weight in your car, which bottoms out the car. You know, the weight capacity is only 360 pounds, so if you're adding 75 additional pounds, which is what the original thing was, now you're not adding any extra weight, and you're getting, you know, 5 times more usable capacity, probably more than that. That's pretty conservative, and favoring the OEM pack, which is garbage. So yeah, I'll throw this video online, and I'll throw a couple pictures or videos. I'm just probably going to take a video of these guys, and you can just pause. So exactly as I have the pack displayed here, positives on the left, negatives on the right, is what I'm going to show you here. Oh goodness, lighting is awful. Let's see what we can do. So we have on the left, we have the OEM electrical, so the OEM Leaf pack. So this is pack A, B, C, D. I've written it here, A, B, C, D. I should write it here. I'll do that real quick. So A, B, C, D. All right. So we go, the black lead here is the one. So I see the 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3. That's the OEM electrical conductivity through here. The voltage you'll measure would be 0.3672, just the way I have it charged now. So if we go to the mechanical connectivity, this is basically showing the bus bars, and every time you see a line here, that's the break you need to make. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 breaks. So note the only bus bars you won't end up breaking is the one right here. So and here's the battery connection order. So you can see my 2 little shorts here, the little bus bars. There's the first one, which I've drawn in here. And I don't know where the second one went. Maybe it's this. Yeah, that looks like the second one. So here's our second bus bar. That actually goes like that. So we have a little bus bar hooking up to there. We have a bus bar there. And then we got all these sense leads. So y'all have at it. If someone else wants to sell the battery modification, go for it. But I think this is going to be a DIY type project, just because I imagine it costs in labor probably $50 to do each one of these packs. So unless you're concerned about the weight, at the end of the day you're going to be spending pretty much most of the weight of the whole pack anyway. So yeah, I'll throw this online. You feel free to send me questions.